Hello, everyone. Welcome to PowerTalk Show powered by Business Talks Weekly. Our guest today is a PhD biochemist. She is changing the skincare industry. She is the CEO and founder of Vegam, Dr. Mimi Vega. Dr. Vega, welcome to the PowerTalk Show.
Thank you, and I've been very, very happy to be here.
It is our pleasure to have you, Doctor. So, Doctor, before we begin a conversation, can you tell us a bit about your professional journey and what led to the creation of Vegam?
Yes, well, actually, it's very interconnected, like most journeys are, right? It started in my childhood. So I'm going to go very, very quickly, but always passionate about how things work, especially around health and our body and the connection with the planet. And I very early set on to develop a skincare brand that made sense for the skin. I had skin issues and I couldn't figure out why like the products at the time weren't working. And when I finished my PhD, I actually realized that I was missing something. Something was missing that we weren't understanding. And at the time, my mother had a diagnosis of leukemia. She lived many years and was in remission after that. But still, like I was tempted for almost 20 years to dig in more into that space and to understand, prevention and everything. That led me to a career in biopharma where I got to work across disease states and make the connections between, like biochemical cascades and what happens on, like in your gut that may influence your skin and etc. I ended up in immunology at some point, and we were really looking at the gut microbiota as the system, like that really supports your immune system. And being so curious of the skin, I dived again into the skin microbiota. And this is where I found what was missing in the first place. So it took me about 25, 30 years to get there. But I realized at that point, MG, this is what, like we had all wrong. And we didn't consider the microbiota. We looked at the skin as problems to solve, like symptoms, instead of looking at how it works as an ecosystem at the root. So I really focused now on the root causes and the root functions of the skin. And that's how I approach skin. It's a really different approach to skin health, which ultimately, provides everything the skin needs.
Wow, that's very interesting. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Doctor. So, Dr. Vega, how are you different from the traditional products that are there in the market?
Well, like I said, most products, they focus on one specific target, a symptom, breakout, a wrinkle, a dark spot, or, they put a band-aid basically on the solution. Whereas our product, it's a system, actually, it's a duo, provides and restores the skin at the root. So what does that mean? We see the skin as three barriers that are interconnected and working together. There's the water and the oil barrier, or hydration and suppleness layers that they work together, like, a combo mix, the yin and the yang. You have the salts, the hyaluronic acid, like some ingredients that are really essential for the skin to really keep the water in the skin and actually do its proper functions. And you have that other yang part, which are the oils, like the sebum that the skin produces, but that we strip every day from the skin. And that this oil provides the suppleness and the structure to the skin. But on top of that, those two barriers, there's the microbiota. So this, like in the gut, we also have a micro-flora on the skin, which protects the skin from premature aging and also from these disbalances that are eczema and acne, rosacea, and all these conditions that are actually fully or partially dependent on the health of your skin microbiota. So we feed this microflora and we restore the essentials, the salts and the minerals and the proteins, peptides, and evidently oils to the skin. So the skin is covered at the root, and it can act as it was meant to act, as an organ, a protective organ of our body.
That's very interesting. And a couple of years back, I read a book from Dr. Greg, How Not to Die, which talks about gut health and how whole food, plant based diet can actually help you clean your gut and even change your skin tone, skin color, bring all the brightness and fairness. So is that really possible through diet?
Partially. It's always multifactorial. There is a big difference between the gut microbiota and the skin microbiota. It works in similar ways, but it is very different because, like anybody, and microorganisms work the same depending on the environment where we're not exactly like we're similar, but we have differences. So in the gut, because it's acidic, liquid, you'll have certain microorganisms. On the skin, because you have oils that you produce, and because you're external, you're exposed to oxygen, you have different microorganisms that are skin related. And there's a ton of them, like in the gut, and they work together. And the more that you have on your skin, actually, the better your skin feels.
Interesting. And Dr. Vega, so skincare, health industry, beauty, fashion industry, it's evolving, it's growing. How do you see what is the next turning point in the skincare industry and how challenging it is to bring a new product into the market?
Well, there's like many, many products. The challenge is to actually be visible within a sea of products, for sure. I see ourselves as bringing a new approach to skin. We're very, very different than anything that is out there because, like I said, we don't have just one or two ingredients focusing on that target. So the industry is built to have multiple products in your routine, which focus on different aspects. I have 35 ingredients in my formulations that work together so that you just have to adapt the proportion. And that's another thing, like we put it in a duo so that you can adapt because the skin needs, because it's an organ and it goes with your metabolism and what goes on in your life. And as a woman and other women, like the hormonal system influences massively your skin. And we try to provide it with ingredients that don't listen, that don't respect those cycles. And the skin, like I call one human skin framework, is actually multiple types of skin in a month. And so instead of focusing on symptoms and types of skin, we focus on the one human skin. So it's a different approach. And this is the challenge because we have to educate. We have to, explain how the skin really works. And it's very, very difficult in the sense that we've been kind of brainwashed. I know I was, even when I formulated, like I put everything together and I was like, why isn't it working? Why isn't it like these ingredients? Because my process was to map everything, the good ingredients, the bad ones, and what I call the wasteful, those ones that we pay a fortune for, but that really don't deliver. So, like we put it elsewhere. We decided to look at really the core and the basic studies and to see, okay, what really makes sense again. So these 35 ingredients were selected to work together. They're non-irritant. So they have like longer action, but they provide, they bring back the balance to the skin so that it can do its thing. So very different approach. Once people understand, they really they make this shift. It provides super peace of mind because you don't have to worry about anything your skin might be missing because, you gave it everything it needed to work optimally and actually to look its best because it's glowing, it's hydrated, so it's the best, like pro-aging in a way, it's healthy aging.
Absolutely. So what sort of adoption are you currently seeing and what kind of feedback are you getting from the market?
Well, actually, we've received comments like, my God, this is so simple. I cannot believe anybody hasn't thought about this before. I've had you've literally changed my life. And I know this is skincare, but we are so confused with our skin rituals and we don't know what to do. I remember days, you wake up and your skin has, an irritation or a breakout or, it's a patch of dry spot and you're like, oh my God, what's going on? What do I put on? And the secret is not to put on. It's actually to prevent it from reacting and, let it be. But it's such a big shift that's the challenge. That's really, and so when people actually make that shift, that's what they tell us. They're like, oh my God, I'm never going back. So we have a very, very, like I said, it's getting visible. But once we're visible and people, as like in marketing, it's 7 to 10 times that people will hear about you and, like start questioning. And, first couple of times they don't even see you, right? That's the marketing place, but once, like they get to understand like there's a very, very high adoption, which is fabulous.
Absolutely. And Dr. Vega, so this is a question from me. There is a myth like skincare is majorly for women. I feel it is not. What is your take on that?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, there's the one human skin. For myself, I didn't tell like we have a very short time together, but I developed it for my daughter really because she was going to go through the same cycles of trial and error. It doesn't make sense. So I developed it for her, but also for me because, everybody wants to look, everybody, not just women, want to look younger than they actually are. Like I don't know anybody that, wants to look older unless you're very, very young. But anyway, that's another story. So I set it out for us, but very, very different profiles. Yes, both women. But that thing said, like this one human skin works the same for anybody. Anybody. The thing that changes almost daily. Of course, women have a 1 month cycle, right? Men have a 15-minute cycle in their hormonal, right, system. So they don't get those hormonal variations, but they get the other variations like climate needs, like when you heat or you're on in Dubai AC, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
you need to protect with oils a bit more. You need to supplement. And it depends. It varies. You went to the gym a couple of times, your metabolism is higher, you're producing more sebum, you're going to feel your skin more oily. You want to balance it with a bit more salts. And, like we do all sorts of activity. We eat something sometimes we don't even know affects us, but it does, So how do we balance our skin? It doesn't matter whether you're, a man or woman, the color of your skin, it's just the content of
Yeah.
melanin, right? So it's the same root functions are exactly the same.
It's basically how even the marketing 90% is majorly focused on the women's side of the skincare, right? So, Dr. Vega, the business part aside, as an entrepreneur, how has your journey so far? What kind of exciting transition did you see when you were at a forefront tech level, biochemist level to and being an entrepreneur?
Well, I love learning, thankfully, because I've learned a lot. That said, like in biopharma, I was in medical affairs most of my career. So it is really the connection between the science and the business. It has to make sense. So I had that in me very early on. But that said, yeah, I had to pivot a few times, understand the dynamics. I've learned that I need to speak, to do a lot of social media, and that's like what now we're aiming at doing. We did like events that didn't actually convert that much, but we learned a lot. So now we're much more focused. And that's the thing, focused. I come from biopharma. We had means, we had teams, we had agencies. I'm used to big projects. And then, like you have kind of that mindset coming in, like where, oh my God, it's very, very costly. But now we've adapted. And certainly the biggest shift for me, I think, was to learn to really listen to myself, to my gut. And it doesn't speak very loudly. But I've made a few mistakes where I kind of knew I shouldn't go there. And I did and lost time, money, but lots of learning, like embracing the journey. But it's been very fun. It's still fun actually. But every day, like the mindset is super important because it affects your team. It affects everything you do. Even if the results are the same, your mindset, it might be so different that you'll get other opportunities that you wouldn't have seen if you were not in the right mindset. So I really work on it religiously. This is the, top of list.
Is there anything you would have done differently if you go back and start again?
Absolutely. Of course. Of course. But, I had to learn. It's like doing a PhD, honestly. Like it took me 6, 7 years with the back and forth. If I had known, like at the beginning, what I knew at the end, well, I would have done it in 6 months, right? It's just experimentations, like it's finding your way around. That said, like I'm very grateful for it all. I'm very grateful. Is there Like, yes, there's things I would do, I would definitely not do, mostly. But
That's wonderful. Dr. Vega, what is your vision for the next 3, 5 years? Where are you heading? What are you looking at?
well, a lot more speaking. I'm finishing a book that I've worked on many, many months on. I was trying to say so many things. There's so many things connected, but now I think I'm finally there where I'm, like I've simplified enough without oversimplifying so that we can get it out this year. So this is fabulous. So I'll be speaking a lot more and hopefully market expansion into Europe, the next phase. Who knows?
That's very interesting. And do you feel like in the skincare industry, in biochemist industry, AI is going to play any kind of a role where, in terms of formulation and composition?
Unfortunately, yes, but it's more of the same, right? AI doesn't create anything. If of course my AIs and I use them, like to distill ideas sometimes, but the ideas they never come from the AI, right? And it's a probability tool, as you know. So if you're trying to develop something out of it, you're going to develop more of the same because it cannot get a probability out of something that's not created yet, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, we'll see a lot of ingredients, new ingredients, but again, it's the same focus. This new hero ingredient that does that for your, like one part of your skin, but that this balances the rest. But like it's not always the case. But I do not believe in the superhero ingredient. I mean, like I said, it's a mixture that works. The body is a complex system, or a skin organ as well. So yeah, we'll see a lot of confusion, I think.
That one final question, doctor, and I ask this to all my guests. One piece of advice you received that changed your perspective professionally and
It's probably going back to the, listening to the whispering, and I do say now, listen to your skin as well. It's like, like my two-step system is, feel and mix. It's really around that. One of the first that told me this was, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. That's it. If it's not a hell yes, it's no. Even if it's a, oh, hell yes, but not now, it's a no. So yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Inevin Shetty, for having me. It was great to be here.